Hello and welcome disc golf enthusiasts from around the world back to MDG Media, the one-stop shop for top disc golf content. This is Round 2 Back 9 MPO lead card coverage of the 2025 Ale Open, a fun tournament happening here near Gothenburg, Sweden. I'm Connor Wodd, and with me, top disc golfer Elias Luukkonen.
Thank you, sir. Every episode gives me another upgrade in my career. It's nice to see, and it's nice to be commentating on this round of some Finnish players along with the lone American Ricky Wysocki. We have a two-time world champion on the card. We have two different European champions on the card. Niklas, Anttila, of course, the champion in Open, Davidsson in juniors. But the rest of the field is catching up. These guys didn't have the hottest of front nines. 3 under par each. Justus, Sarvi with the lone 2 under par. It's not a bad pace, but it's not really separating from the rest of the field.
It is not quite the scorching pace that they were able to set in round 1, but the back 9 is more scoreable than the front 9, or maybe just potentially less dangerous. We will kick it off here on hole 10, a 128-meter par 3 going slightly uphill the entire way. This initial tree in the fairway that we just passed now really shows which approach you want to take. A lot of players will either go on the right side with a hyzer flip and some late understability, or on the left side of that tree with more of a flex line, crash the trees and try to slide on up. It funnels very narrow until you get to the green where it opens up more on the right side, but the OB on the left really only comes into play if you fly over the wall. We have Ricky on the tee, up by 1.
You can see his disc turning over slightly more than he would like. And that is to be expected today, as we're playing into a headwind. A headwind that is surprisingly strong. And a headwind that makes this 128-meter hole play even longer than it usually does. Niklas showing the perfect line here, going under the branches and showcasing some good speed on the disc. He's not known for being the longest thrower, but showing that he has enough distance to birdie any hole on this course.
Justus falling prey to the headwind a little bit there, being overturned, not quite completing the flight of the disc. We see the same from Daniel, that early turnover, but a nice skip back to the left to end his flight, getting him close enough to have a look, although partially obstructed. We have Justus up first. I think simply going to step putt this one through the gap, try to put it close for the stress-free 3. That's a long step putt. He's done well. It's more uphill than the camera could show. Daniel with his bid for the 2.
Also more of an approach there. I think Ricky here, he's close enough where he's definitely trying to make this. Going for a bit more of a spinnier putt. And look at this! So far away that the disc is just floating in the air. Still makes the basket look pretty large from that range. I find it very impressive how he's able to modulate the speed and angle and spin off the disc. You can see more of a spin putt there, slight anhyzer, and just hits the heart.
Wraps around the trees and finds the chains. Ricky Wysocki strikes again from deep. We go now to Niklas from just inside the circle, and he had a few missed putts in the front 9, but that was a very clean stroke to secure it. I think getting more comfortable on the green as the round settles in. Justus as well, we saw in the front 9, solid putter, likely the strength of his game that got him here to this round 2 lead card position.
Very much agreed, and he has done well so far, not showing many signs of nerves. Usually when you have a younger player on a big lead card for the first time, they tend to be very tense in the beginning, but Justus with very few mistakes. Continuing into the woods, we're going to be playing in the woods for the next many holes. 11 is going to be one of the shortest, possibly actually the shortest hole on the course, just 84 meters. Plays perfectly for a small backhand turnover, but I'd say the more common play here is going to be that overstable forehand, hopefully fading before the backside trees. Forehand is going to be trickier to park compared to the backhand, but the gap hit for a good forehand player is almost guaranteed. There you go, Ricky challenging the backside trees, going even around them. But that is gonna be an interesting spot. I think he's in the circle. Gonna have some sort of an obstructed look.
Niklas pushing that back tree line doesn't complete the fade to the right. Will leave him a low ceiling and obstructed between him and the basket. Justus as well shaping the inside forehand. Just beats that last tree and beautiful backstop as well. Completely parked for the bullseye. Will not need to use his putting. Daniel going a little bit wider, let's say a more traditional forehand line, but you see he has to get a little bit lucky to filter through, but he's done just that. Also tapping in the 2. We see Niklas.
Powerful step putt there. Looked very confident on that bid. But not gonna be good. And Ricky a chance to pull away from Niklas with a rare right side miss. Ricky not being the player that misses the line entirely that often. Usually his misses are either low, as almost he did there, or high above the basket. Usually very well. Usually a very good player at keeping the line of the putt.
As we see the short putts left here. Hole 11 really without much danger, but it's quite surprising how often some of the top players don't secure the birdie too. However, light work for both Justus and Daniel. We are here on hole 12, a 203-meter par 4. You have this initial choice going either left or right of this batch of trees. The left one is perhaps slightly wider in the fairway, but also requires more lateral movement, whereas the right side maybe lines up more nicely to the fairway, but is a tighter gap to hit. You pick your poison. As you meet in the center fairway, you then have to navigate through these skinny trees and up to this mounded green. Directly behind is a slope and significant drop-off. A lot of rolls are created if the approach or putt goes long, so a lot of players are going to try to end just short of that green to look for their birdie putt. Justus up first, opting for the right side, going for a high and wide spike hyzer. The height most likely going to mitigate any sort of skip, but fading a little bit too soon. Unclear the reaction off the tree. Similar looking line from Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel with a bit more push forward, throwing it slightly harder, even with a slow overstable disc there. He's going to be in the ideal position, has a couple of options from there. And Ricky looks like an overstable fairway driver, pushing too far, but a fortunate kick back to the fairway.
Niklas, all 4 of them with a very similar initial release point. And that is also in the sweet spot, center cut. So we'll see Justus up first. So he is out in the open, but forced to take this awkward stance to push his backhand. He's tried to get this turned over, but that tree denying him much of his flight. You go to Ricky here, who is pinched, is going to have to shape a very tight backhand flex. You see steep anhyzer angle with a very overstable disc. Oi, oi, oi. That is a crazy shot to pull off. Even going long of the green.
That was impressive. We'll have to see whether he actually stayed on the hillside or rolled down. Looked like either option could be very possible. And Niklas there, common result to stay a little bit right. Gonna have that awkward circle too, likely a straddle putt. Daniel, this is the other option you can do, the wide hyzer. Throws it pretty well. I think he's inside the circle there. Definitely a good Daniel shot, that wide hyzer, perfect for his release angle and power.
Justus is third now, looking to get close to secure his par. Slides his way up to the beginning of the mound. Nicely done. I would guess Ricky probably has one of the longer putts, but Niklas up first from outside the circle, off the knee, hearts it. Incredible composure from a difficult position to go 5 under for the round. Niklas has found himself at 13 under with that putt.
That's a championship level putt there. Ricky trying to do the same. Drops it in on the low left side. Good speed control there.
Daniel from 7.
A big miss. This is not the hole you want to be missing putts on. Does have a comebacker from 10 and pulls it right again. Now probably close to his original position there on the birdie putt. Only this time he's putting for a bogey.
This is the danger of the elevated basket, particularly for someone who spin putts in a very direct fashion. And he's gone even further now, and that one is just a layup. From that distance, he understands the probabilities of how often that goes in or not. And a little bit painful to see, considering his position on the leaderboard. He will fall back a little bit here as a result on hole 12. But that just goes to show you the extreme danger of this green. It may look very simple, but in reality can be very punishing.
He's gonna have to mark that hockey stick on the scorecard. As you can see, dropping him well down the leaderboard, still tied for 5th. Not a bad position, but feels much worse than tied for 2nd.
What's going on, guys? Hold My Bag just launched the greatest disc golf fantasy game in the universe.
Hold My Bag just dropped the best fantasy disc golf game the planet has ever seen.
I want to tell you guys about the newest disc golf fantasy game on the market.
One of my favorite parts is the Hold My Bag. This is something that we started doing, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Moving on to one of the signature holes of the scores, I would say, hole 13, a 310 meter par 5 through the woods. A pretty wide gap off the tee. You want to hit the gap with a straight disc, hopefully land somewhere near the next gap, starting the tunnel that's turning to the right. You can even attack with a roller or forehand if you want to go for the huge eagle on this hole. Access the second tunnel on the first shot already. Important to stay on the fairway, whether you throw longer or shorter shots. Don't really have to bite off that much if you're only going for the birdie. Just stay on the fairway, chip it up there. Little right turn, then a little left turn at the end. Plays really nicely for a big distance flex shot. And I'm interested to see if any of these players are actually going for the big eagle here, as Daniel has done in the past.
Big E certainly in play. I think that's what we said might be your new nickname for 2025, Elias. Ricky's gone a touch long of that tunnel entrance. The gallery getting a close-up view of Ricky Wysocki's drive. Niklas playing the roller. This is the most aggressive potential line, but curls up before it can enter the mouth of the second tunnel.
This needs some luck. Would call that a pretty neutral kick. He's gonna have still actually a chance for birdie with a good second and incredible third shot. And here's the roller from Daniel. This looks very similar to the one that he eagled with last year. And look at that shot. Wow.
He cannot really get much further into that second leg of the fairway than that. Particularly after what happened on the last hole. I think he is going all out. Justus, Elias, you called this reaction neutral. I'd say it is slightly positive to go so far left as it opens up his entrance, but you can see still a very narrow width available to him and connects with the back tree line. See Niklas. I think this fairway most often shapes naturally for a low-speed disc, as you want to land flat and mitigate that left to right movement. As we see putters from both Niklas and Ricky here.
Well done by both. They're gonna have not much more than 90 meters left to go to the green, slightly uphill. And this is where Justus's forehand ended up. So actually a good chance for birdie, but ends up pulling it to the right. And this one I would call much more positive than a neutral reaction. Actually an incredible break to get out of the trees. And to a certain, a relatively easy par chance.
Daniel looking to recreate his eagle of history, but doesn't quite complete the full flex. Only really had the Anheuser turn portion and not quite the full S. But he is simply going to be jump putting into the green. Ricky shaping a straight to softly leftwards shot. Gets caught up on the inside line, but trickles to circle's edge.
You have these couple of trees on the right side of the last gap, which are great aiming points. You want to fade just in front of them, exactly as Justus does. Beautiful shot there, shaping the fairway. Yeah, a lot of players can even use those trees as an aiming point, where they almost try to hit the trees and just fade at them.
And the moment it left his hand, Niklas knew that shot was not where he was wanting it.
Down for eagle here. A big bid from 30 meters. Not a bad one at that.
Okay.
Niklas once again practicing some finish, calling it terrible.
Shows you what a high standard he has for himself from such an awkward position. And Rick in to get 6 under for the round. And we saw Daniel with that unfortunate outcome on the previous hole. Was one of those close chasers for Ricky. He's beginning to separate now. Daniel, a fantastic bounce back though. We see Niklas now. In from that short distance for his par.
Even though this hole averages above par for the field, it feels like a disappointing par. When you're one of these top players, the fairway is relatively wide. You don't have to throw super far on any of the shots. It just feels like you have to do something wrong to not get a birdie on this one.
Definitely true. This hole, however, can punish you quickly for a very small mistake in comparison to 13. This 109-meter par 3 has that initial gap and tunnel to hit. You then break out into this slightly more open area where the trees begin to thin, and you approach this elevated basket with OB behind and to the right. Managing this left to right slope will also come into play. A lot of people like to shape a forehand through the gap, but often then combat that slope. The backhand is potentially more favorable given the terrain. Rick has hit this very purely. He just needs to beat those trees. Kicks to about circle 2's edge. That is a very dangerous putt and most likely a layup for most, if not all, players.
Daniel more comfortable with hitting the gap with a forehand, and knowing his touch, can't blame him, though this time he overturns it a little bit. It's an easy mistake to make. Look at this beautiful camera angle from the MDG crew. And Niklas actually hitting the same tree as Ricky. I believe that is one of the trees that you have to be okay with hitting if you throw a good shot on this hole.
Justus dissecting it flawlessly, hitting the ground on that hard-packed earth and getting the slide down the hill. You cannot see a more controlled shot here on 14 than what Justus just showed us. We will now go into a little bit of risk management surrounding the green. Rick's a simple layup, and you see that from the time that he takes. Niklas as well.
Yeah, Niklas even laying up with the bag on, showing how little of a decision it was. Same thing for Daniel. These players know that this is not the time to push. Maybe if this was the final round and the situation was tight, I could see some of these players making a long putt from far side of circle 2. But second round, just above the halfway point of the tournament, there is no sense running it from 20.
Just like that, Justus Sarvi takes the box here on the lead card. He's also currently tied with Niklas in second.
Moving on to another birdieable hole on the back. 180 meters, par 4. The distance is gonna play much longer, probably closer to 220 with the uphill grade on the second part of the fairway. Tee shot plays best for a little flex fairway driver. You turn it over to the right and it comes back to the fairway, ideally about 100-110 meters off the tee. Then you're gonna have a severe uphill slope for your second. You wanna throw something straight with a little left finish. Usually people tend to end up short on this approach, so you can really power up on the second shot. Hard to go long, especially if you choose a fairway driver instead of a distance driver.
The last tree to beat for Justus, but does kick past it. Favorable outcome, considering he hits the tree. Rick, I believe, battling some of the bugs here in the Swedish summers, and just makes the gap look huge. We discussed, Elias, that in his practice was making the gap look way bigger than almost anyone with his natural flex release. Daniel opting for the forehand.
Looks like he threw it fairly soft there, not trying to get that much distance. Still almost matching Rick's fairway driver shot there with a backhand. Everybody in solid position, though I would prefer to see Daniel more on the left side of the fairway to open up more of a hyzer approach compared to an anhyzer from where he is.
I thought I was going crazy. I'm like, what's going on?
Niklas going very anhyzer release. A nicely overstable driver. Also ending to the right, though, not quite coming back to the left. They will have, as you said, Elias, more of a straight, even potentially anhyzer shape to access that entrance to the green. Justus up first from center fairway. Going to be getting this on hyzer, up to flat through the gap, and finding hopefully some late fade. Even the beautiful skip. The crowd loves it. We love it. Justus probably loves it as well.
Definitely Justus, not the player to show a lot of emotion, but I think inside of his head he knows that he's probably making that putt from inside the circle. And as we mentioned, you can see the tough angle from the right side of the fairway. Daniel having to go with a flex shot and paying the price of the overly technical shot that he had to throw because of his position.
And I would say Rick was in the perfect spot in terms of width on the fairway. Just before that big rock, center allows him to throw that pure hyzer shape. He did get it a little bit pulled to the right from what he was intending, but checked up nicely in the green. Niklas, similar to Daniel, although slightly closer. Incredible execution on a shot that requires so many things to go right.
I think that might just be the shot where Niklas is the best in the world. I would not take any other player for this 100-meter overstable fairway driver flex. Daniel, let's go. Beautiful putt from just above 10 meters there, I believe. He's getting over the triple bogey he had quite well so far.
We love to see it. Go to Ricky now. Striking again on the green. Rick saying himself that he thrives off the energy of a crowd.
Now that's a surprising miss from Justus. Has been putting solid so far. Niklas there, easy birdie as well. Easy after the great approach. Yeah, Justus gonna be left out of the birdie party on this hole. Got the box on the last hole and lost it right here.
OTB is very specific on how they list the disc because they want you to like the disc.
Virtually in your hand tells you what the disc is gonna feel like, how heavy it's gonna be. It's everything you wanna know before it shows up to your house.
Not just marketing.
It's only the best.
We continue to hole 16, a downhill 120 meter par 3, although playing much closer to maybe 90 or 95 meters. You have this initial bend to the right around the corner as you then navigate towards this late gap with the trees to both the left and the right. OB lines deep of the green, although I'd say that OB comes into play very infrequently. You need a very precise backhand turnover line, potentially a power forehand hyzer, but I think this hole is very difficult to get super close to the pin. A lot of players will be left in circle 2 simply by the result of such a demanding and specific shape. Rick is doing something very crazy here. I believe a Skamahawk, Elias. Hard to say.
Definitely looked like either a spike anhyzer, backhand roller, Skamahawk, something in between them. I think he's probably a little bit lost on this hole. He was going for a different play in round number 1, and I believe in the practice round with Maxime he was saying that he hasn't quite figured this hole out. Unlike Daniel, who has put it within putting distance once again.
Niklas once again shaping that super overstable anhyzer flex which you mentioned on the previous hole. Does contend with that late gap, but filters to the friendly side will leave him an open outside the circle putt. We go to Justus now. It's interesting seeing the different approaches here. It's possible to throw anything from quite an understable gliding mid-range all the way up to quite an overstable fairway driver, and managing that release angle and flex shape really comes down to player preference. Justus with an enormous jump putt approach down the hill.
Big distance. You can see the green stake just behind his lie was the 50-meter stake. So that's a good 45-meter jump putt down the hill. And Ricky probably trying to run this one. And a good run it is! Thought that was in. I thought we might see some raptor legs on this hole. Haven't seen that in a while, but I think that would have been the right occasion to pull it out from the bag.
We saw the acceleration from his end. He was ready to pull it out. Didn't quite connect. Daniel, long putt on the last hole. A long chance on this one. Very close to clean. Niklas, a reasonable but not easy birdie putt.
Same hit as Daniel there. Niklas there, he's in solo second place. And Ricky of course solo first. But both Daniel and Justus need to be a little bit concerned about their spots on the lead card as the field is charging behind them. A lot of players are in that 12, 11 under range with potentially a hole left to play even. So Daniel and Justus definitely need to focus up on the last two to ensure their spots on the lead card. That's gonna be important on hole number 17, which on paper is quite an easy shape, and the shot itself is not very challenging. The only challenge on this hole I'd say is the gap is still missable, and the slight right to left uphill slope does tend to pull your discs more towards the left. So a lot of people who look like they're hitting the gap off the tee might end up too far left or short, as this hole is playing a little bit longer than you would think originally.
Rick very inside. He slipped on that tee pad, not the only one that I saw today. A lot of mud is accumulating, although the conditions today are significantly better than in the previous round. Still certainly a factor to consider. Daniel squeaking by the inside line with perfect pace, perfect skip. He slides his way up to a bullseye tap in. You mentioned Elias, he needs those birdies. He's secured one already.
Niklas here, high release, challenging the ceiling, but getting a fortunate result. Maybe not fortunate, just a solid result. He's gonna have a chance for birdie there from 10. And Justus pulling it to the right. But he actually did a thing that I feel like happens often in disc golf, where if you throw a bad enough shot, you hit the first tree on the wrong side, or you miss the wrong tree, first tree on the wrong side, you actually end up getting a lot of distance. And he has an approach, just a jump putt to the green from here.
And a strange reaction on the ground will leave him longer than he'd like. Ricky extending fully out to shape the Anheuser forehand. Does hit the very final tree, but finds himself in the circle. This is Justus for par now.
And that's going to be a big bogey. As mentioned on the last hole, the spots for lead card are sought after. So you don't really have the budget to take a bogey on this hole if you want to stay on the lead card.
A bit shy for Niklas. Ricky, however, not one to take an unnecessary bogey. Best scrambler in the world statistically. We see that there. I wonder how Ricky likes his eggs. I would guess scrambled.
That's a good one. I think Ricky has made enough money from disc golf where he doesn't need to make his eggs anymore himself.
Ricky might be looking to find some money on this hole here tomorrow, but still in round 2, this par 4 245-meter hole, you have a long straight open shot that you want to move leftwards towards the end of the flight to open up your angle onto this island green. This island is about 10 to 13 meters, depending on which side of it you land on, but large enough that the majority of players with a good drive expect to make it, leaving you with a putt to the open gallery lining the walls and ceiling of the OTB Ale shop. It's always a great energy here to close out the round. We'll have Daniel starting us. I expect to see a booming backhand in terms of distance.
Looking like exactly that. Going for more of the overstable compared to a glidey disc. I like the play because actually in today's wind, as we're having calm to a slight tailwind on this hole, if you really flip it up with a glidey disc, the long side hazard is actually reachable for these longest throwers. And Ricky as well, playing it very safe to the left side, probably safer than he would like. It's going to be a long approach, but manageable. Wind is pretty far down and no more than 90-95 meters to go.
Niklas, not necessarily known for his raw power, but his ability to manipulate angles and discs. This one, however, not turned at all, will fade out significantly earlier than he would like. However, an open look to the green, it will just leave him a longer distance than the others. I think the only true mistake here, assuming your inbounds, is to end too far to the right. So that is the most common result here. If something is slightly off on the shot, is to fade too far left. Niklas up first, looking to approach the green, currently sitting in solo second to secure his spot on the lead card in the final round.
And look at that touch. Beautiful shot. Most players going for the forehand from similar position, but Niklas trusting the backhand. You can see he's not quite pleased with the round, knows that he has potential for better, and knows that tomorrow he will likely need to shoot better in order to catch this man who is trying to finish on a high note. Making the island. Not a great shot, but he does have a putt to finish 18 under for the tournament through 2 rounds. Solid score. Not too far away from his goal of shooting 10 under par per round.
Nice delivery to the green by Justus. Just playing that one angle forehand. Daniel so far up and to the left, he's able to play, in fact, a pure backhand Spikeiser. Very rare you see anyone have the opportunity, let alone the decision to do that, and he has executed it flawlessly. A fun player to watch. Ricky to end his round here with a made putt.
And there you go. Warming up the legs potentially for tomorrow. 8 under score. Clean back 9. 5 under, 4 pars, 5 birdies on the back. That is what you want to see, and that is what he will have to do tomorrow to keep these European players out of his way. As Justus Sarvi finishes a round of 4 under, solid showing, absolutely not. I mean, nothing wrong with how the way that he played today. Usually you would expect some nerves, but this guy, balls of steel.
And great composure on the course, and we saw him really make a mark here in his MDG debut. As we see Niklas and David, along with Ricky and Justus, on that star frame 18. Just like that, our lead card finishes strong, but we see a couple names sneaking onto the lead card, Elias, potentially.
Yeah, Joona Heinonen will be in the place of Justus Sarvi for our 3rd round. Thank you, Justus, for being here, and welcome Joona to the next round. Thank you guys for watching this video. It's a pleasure to make this for you, and thanks to the whole MDG team for making the edit. Thanks to Connor for being here with me in this late evening/night.
It is always a pleasure to catch us on that final round. Hit subscribe, hit like, comment who your favorite player is below, and find us to see who will be crowned your next 2025 Ale Open champion. We see you there.